Alrighty, chat. Let's get started. Alrighty. I don't need these. How's everybody doing today? Welcome to another healthy GG stream. Gamers Unite. Hope y'all are doing well. I know we took a week off last week. I hope that was okay with everyone. Yeah, so welcome to another Healthy Gamer GG stream. My name is Alok Kanoja. I'm a psychiatrist practicing in Boston. Just a reminder that everything we discuss on stream today is intended to be for educational purposes only, and nothing is intended to be taken as medical advice. So, yeah, welcome everybody. So we took a week off from streaming. We were doing something that needed to be done. And I guess it's not really a super secret project. It was just some HG stuff. I'm not sure if it's public or not, so I'm not going to say anything about it, but maybe there's stuff on our socials. I don't know. But we are back to regular streaming schedule this week. So I think we're going to try to stream Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. So today, super excited. We've got an awesome Twitch creator, Jack Manifold, is going to be joining us, and we're going to maybe be talking about stresses of content creation. I'm not quite sure. But yeah, so that'll be great. And looking forward to talking to Jack with Jack. He's an awesome Twitch person, I assume. So we'll see how that goes. Let me just see what he's. Okay. A couple of other things. So Wednesday and Friday, we're probably, I don't know if we're going to be doing interviews or like more lecture kind of stuff. So I was trying to think about doing some stuff about like how to survive the holidays, like and talking a little bit about family dynamics. And, what happens during the holidays. So if you guys are kind of interested in that, let us know. We may... Yeah, so also, what do you guys want us to work on? Like, what do y'all want to learn more about? So the other thing that we were thinking about, it seems like the ADHD lectures are like super, super helpful. I know they're not helpful for everyone, but for the people that do have ADHD, it seems like it's very enlightening. So I was actually thinking about doing maybe a lecture on like why ADHD exists. So not even like from a pathological standpoint, but for us to understand, this is kind of like a high level mental health discussion about like, why is our brain like this? It's kind of a interesting question. Like, how is our brain evolved like this? How do I understand what is going on in my brain if I have ADHD? What's influencing ADHD? And also like, what do I do with it? So it's like a little bit less medical and like also but I find that oftentimes helping people understand like the meaning behind things is like very useful and helpful. So we could do something like that. In general, we're open to doing what y'all want. So in December, if y'all have particular ideas or things that you want to learn more about or things that we should be focusing on, whether y'all want like, I saw one person mention viewer interviews, okay, fasting, parent related stuff, like you guys just let us know and then we'll start working on it. Sound good, chat? Okay, let's go. Okay. ADHD versus trauma. Ooh, so trauma's a whole bucket, man. Can you use ADHD as a tool or is it a condition to be managed? Yeah, that's why I wanted to kind of maybe do like a general lecture about like how do we understand like ADHD in general. And I think it's not a coincidence, for example, that if you talk to content creators, so we've worked with several hundred, I'll just say this to Jack at some point, but I don't think it's a coincidence that the number of content creators that have ADHD is actually like higher than average.
Hello. Oh, hold on.
Hello.
That's not going to work. Wait, let me switch that over. There we go. Hello.
Hello, friend. Give me just 1 second.
How are you? No, of course.
I'm doing great, buddy. How are you?
I'm good. I'm doing well.
I'm a boomer, so you got to give me a second, bro.
It's fine. No, don't worry about it. You're all good.
All right, there we go. And can you count to 10 for me?
Of course. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5,
Awesome.
6, 7, 8. Oh, brilliant.
Perfect. Yeah, that was great. So welcome, Jack. Sorry, I'm going to grab my notebook.
Of course.
Thank you so much. So first, welcome to the stream.
Thank you.
We're honored to have you. Is there something in particular that you prefer to be called? Like, what do you go by?
I just go by Jack. No one
Jack?
tends
Okay.
to. Most people, in fact, full name me, which is a bit weird. I don't know. That's a thing we usually did as kids, and then we kind of grow out of. But I tend to find I'm full named. But no, you can just call me Jack.
Okay. So welcome to the stream, Jack. My name is Alok, or Dr. K. And I'm really happy to have you here. I'm really glad you agreed to come on. Couple of ground rules. Yes. First of all, nothing that you don't have to talk about anything that you don't want to talk about. We oftentimes have a reputation for people coming on and expressing a lot of emotion, but we don't have to do that. Right, I really view this as I'm a resource for you. And so anything that you want to talk about or anything that I could help you with, I'm more than happy to. Does that work for you?
Yeah, brilliant.
Cool. So anything that you want to talk about or anything I can help you with?
This is the one where it's difficult because I think you guys reached out to me in July, and every time it's been like, yeah, I'll come on this week, and then something will come up. Sure. And I've been incredibly busy. And I think there were kind of two things that came out. One thing that came out through that process was I'm really bad at organizing myself. I'm terribly, if not busy, mentally busy, which is a different thing entirely. Like a lot of the time when people ask me to do things, I'll be like, oh no, I'm busy, which isn't always the case. I actually don't have that many things to do a lot of the time, but I'm very mentally busy. I don't always know how to wrap my head around all the things that are going off at once. So, that's one thing. And then I suppose another thing that I thought about probably a couple of weeks ago, but I'm a little bit like, I've got a bit of brain fog because I just moved and I'm like in that process of, like still a bit sleep deprived and stuff. But I was thinking about kind of this like sense of self and like who I am in terms of it came from like a work related thing where I was like thinking about how to move forward with some content stuff. And I'm like, well, a lot of people will argue that content creation, depending on how you do it, is very personality based. And I was like, okay, great. What do people like? What do I bring? And then I just kind of sat there and was like, I have no idea what about me makes me. Like I was like, I don't understand that in the slightest.
Beautiful.
So that was also, I thought maybe a discussion that could be interesting. I don't really know. I don't have much to add about it since that was kind of my question. I have no idea how to approach that problem. But
Jack,
it's something I thought about.
I think both of those are perfect.
Great.
So I would love to talk to you about either of those two things or both. So here's what I heard. One is that like the subjective feeling of being busy may be disconnected from what your calendar looks like.
Yeah, totally.
So we can try to understand, like, how does that work? Like what's going on? What makes us feel busy? Can I just tell you a quick story about that, by the way?
Of course. Yeah. Go for it.
So we had a pilot at Healthy Gamer that was high performance coaching. So it was sort of like working with people who were more successful. And so there was a really interesting kind of theme that came out of that, which is, some people came into the group coaching process expecting like tips. And they were like, they would come in and they say, I want to work on my work-life balance. And so what they were really hoping for is like a few weeks in, they were kind of disappointed because they were like, I was hoping to be like more efficient, right? I was hoping I could learn from other people who were like more efficient. I'd get tips and then I could be more efficient and then I could improve my work-life balance. But then what we sort of realized after talking with them is that, if you were 10% more efficient, what would you do with the extra time? And the answer inevitably was work more. And so
at which point? Yeah.
Yeah. So I think a lot of this comes from the sort of the idea of like, where does mentally busy come from? So we could definitely talk about that. And I think the other thing that is very important is your sense of self. So like, who are you? And when you make content, what is it that people resonate with? And what do you, how do you make content that is aligned with who you are? Which one do you want to start with? Or which one's more interesting to you?
I think the one that I'd benefit more from is probably the mentally busy part. I think that's the one I'd rather wrap my head around than out the two.
So we can first notice what's driving your decision.
Oh, being more efficient. It's 100%. It's
right.
I realize I'm very. One thing I know about myself is that I'm very success driven. Like throughout all of life, it's kind of generally that's the thing I'm striving for. And I get very upset with failure to the point like very upset with it. It's something, and it doesn't even have to be very big failure. Very minute things. Kind of. I don't have a very good sense of scale. I'm very black and white. Like it's like success or failure, and that's kind of like the binary sort of system in which everything is one or the other. And I know that's not quite right, and I'm trying to not be like that.
How
But
do you know
I'm
that that's
kind of
not
aware.
quite right?
Well, because certain things, it's not that it's not quite right, I suppose. It's more that it is detrimental to me to get so deeply upset by these things that I categorize as failure, and they're not really that bad. Like, I know deep down that they're not that bad, but I know also that I'm upset by them. And I'd rather not be, because I find that in being upset by them, all I do is I become less motivated, I work less, and I stumble into more failures, which I then like. You know what I mean? It's like this cycle that
Yeah.
perpetuates.
Well,
Yeah.
let me see if I heard the cycle correctly. You kind of screw up.
Yeah.
You tell yourself, oh, it's not that big of a deal. You can bounce back from this. Don't stress about it. Don't worry about it. If you free yourself of screwing up, you can go back to succeeding. But
Yes.
the debuff from screwing up
Mhm.
causes you to screw up more.
Yes.
And then maybe even you start beating yourself up for like, why can't I cleanse this debuff?
Yeah. That's totally it. Yeah.
Yeah, so that's interesting. What do you think about that?
I think it's my biggest, like, not my biggest flaw necessarily. Flaw might not be the right word, but it's the thing I would wish I could get over, because it's the thing that I find causes me to I find that a lot of the time when I'm not doing something, it's because I'm annoyed about the last thing that went wrong, and that's why this thing's going wrong. And it's like, if I could just move on from the last thing, maybe I could put my full attention into this thing.
Okay. Sounds like quite a pickle, Jack.
I'm glad you think so. I'm glad you think it's a pickle as well.
Yeah. Oh, did you think? How does it feel when I say it sounds like quite a pickle?
Well, at that point, then it's like, oh, okay, then no one else. It's good that I don't have. Sorry, it's not good. I mean, it's more normal that I don't have the answers. Like, I've not been able to figure this out.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden, if you're sat there like, wow, I don't know what, it's like, well, okay, that makes me feel like I've not been. There's a certain level of frustration if you were to turn around immediately and go, this is how you fix that. And I'd be like, wow, if I'd known this for the past 5 years, then I would have been, you know what I mean? If it was such a simple answer, but to know it's not, I suppose.
It would make you feel stupid.
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
Yeah.
I feel like, you feel
Yeah,
stupid.
I don't think you're stupid, Jack.
No, thank you.
I think what you're dealing with is very hard. And I think the reason it's very hard is because being the way that you are, let me know how this feels to you. It's kind of like if you weren't so detail oriented, if you didn't beat yourself up so much, would you be where you are today?
That's the difficult question. I don't really know. Part of me would possibly argue no. Maybe I feel like if I wasn't as detail oriented, like you say, I feel like I'd coast more, and I possibly wouldn't have pushed myself like I do, because I do push myself quite hard.
Okay.
And I don't mind that. I'm quite happy to be the person that stays up till like stupid hours in the morning working. I'm quite fulfilled by being a worker. That I enjoy, but it's when it's the consequences of when that goes wrong, how it then screws me up for so much longer afterwards. That's the problem. That's the part I don't like.
How do you feel about coasting?
Oh yeah, no, I can't do it. I'm very. I wish part of me wishes I could, but then I'd feel lazy. I feel lazy enough as it is, and I feel like I probably do work when you look at it, but a lot of the time I'll be like, I feel lazy. Like this is to give you a detail. This is then a week where I felt lazy, and I moved on Monday, and then I went out filming on Tuesday. I unpacked all my things on Wednesday, which I didn't like because I did nothing but unpack all day, and I'm like, I haven't worked today. And then I went out filming all day on Thursday, and then Friday I unpacked some more, and then my parents came to visit, and now it's Monday. And I felt like, wow, I didn't get much done that week. Where really, when I think about it, where was the time to do all the things? But I sat there all week thinking, wow, I really need to like knuckle down next week because I didn't do much. And that's...
Yeah, I feel like we're coming up on mentally busy. What do you think?
Yes, yes.
Yeah, help me understand
how I
that.
feel.
Yeah, so
I feel like a lot of the time I've just got a lot of things to be working on. And when I feel it's like that sort of like task paralysis thing, you know, when you've got too many things and you're like, whoa, well, I'm just going to back off and do nothing. It's like, because that's the easy, you know, it's like, yeah, there's this, I know I've got to, like, I've got a million and one list of things I have to do in my head. And then it's like, right, how do I, sometimes I'll just sit there and I'm not really doing anything. I'm not busy in that moment, but I feel busy because like, well, I don't want to be doing anything else, because if we're doing anything else, I'm going to take my focus away from trying to figure out what I should be doing, if that makes sense. I realize
yeah,
it
absolutely.
feels
So
like quite a complicated thought process to explain, because it's a lot of, it's busyness, and busyness is difficult to kind of, you know.
so Jack, I think it's very complicated, and hopefully you and I can try to untangle it. How does that sound? Okay, so I'm going to toss a couple things out, and you let me know what rings true and what doesn't. Okay, you're our compass. So I'm going to point the compass in different directions, and you let me know if it aligns.
Cool.
So you have this list of things that you've got to do, right? Because you're a content creator and you know, like, okay, like I've got to do this and I've got to do this, and this is going to be hype and this is going to be great. This is going to be fun. It also fulfills you, right? So it's not like you're like, you know, a taskmaster in your mind. It's like, oh, you're genuinely excited about doing these things, right?
Yeah.
Then what happens is sometimes you can't really act on them. Like, let's say you've got to move, for example. So in your mind, you have the 1,000 tasks and you've got to move. But for some reason, moving never really enters the task list, right? It's not like one of your goals. Like, it's not something you're working towards. It's something that kind of gets in the way. And so so at the end of the day, you have moved 0 steps forward on your task list, but you have moved.
Yeah.
And then what happens is you kind of feel like, oh my God, like I haven't progressed because this is my task list of 1,000 things. And like, instead I had to waste a day moving. And then that sort of feels like, oh my God, now like a day has gone by and I haven't moved forward at all. And then like the next day rolls around and you're sort of like, oh man, you know, I should have done stuff yesterday and I don't know. And like, man, I could have squeezed something in. And then you start to maybe beat yourself up a little bit. That in turn could like lead to a little bit more paralysis, because I think beating yourself up is kind of like a coin flip. Sometimes it drives you and it's like, man, like,
totally. Yeah.
I'm never going to do this again. Never again. Like, let's do it, Jack. Like, let's go. And other times it's like, oh man, like I wish I had done it.
Yeah. And I tend to fall on that latter, I think, more. Because I have friends who I went to advice for, and he tried to motivate me the way he motivates himself, which is harsh criticism, which works great for him because he feels like, wow, I can be better. That's how he sees it. Where I go, just like kind of sigh and don't want to do anything. And so I definitely, that experience was like, yeah, no, that's definitely, beating myself up doesn't really motivate me much. It can do, of course it can, but like most of the time it just makes me feel, you know, like just a bit.
Yeah. Can I think for a second?
Of course. Yeah. Go for it.
If someone were to tell you that they think you're doing great, how would you feel?
I like that, and people have, and that makes me feel good. But ultimately, I think a lot of the time, I then go, I'm glad that I'm doing well by your standards. You know what I mean? That's what I feel like. Then I go, but by my standards, it's not quite enough. Like, I feel like my standards are different, and therefore that's really good. And I feel like, thank God you said I'm doing well, but I'm still not quite satisfied. That's usually what it like boils down to.
I'm gonna enter slow-mo for a second, okay?
Oh, yeah, that's all good.
So when people say they think you're doing great, do you feel like they don't understand?
Sometimes definitely. It depends who says it. There's certain people who have more credibility in that claim than others, I would say. Because certain people are in a similar position to me. And if they say I'm doing great, it's like, well, you understand this world and what we do and blah, blah, blah. And if you think I'm doing well, then that genuinely means something. But like, in no way offense to them, but like, say my parents turn around and go, you're doing great. I'm like, well, you don't, like, I'm glad you think I'm doing well. And that's really nice. And I'm it's lovely to hear your parents are proud and all this stuff. It's like, you don't understand what I'm doing fully. You don't know this world quite the way I do, and to me, I don't feel like I'm doing great still.
So what is it that they don't understand about your world?
I mean, just the content creation stuff. I mean it in quite a literal sense of like, it's just new to them. You know what I mean? They don't quite understand what makes it tick exactly, and what might look good to them, it might not be exactly what it is. You know, it's expecting them to understand something they've only just kind of tried to get their heads around purely because that's their son's job. You know what I mean?
So what makes it hard for you to feel like you're doing good enough? Like when would you be satisfied with yourself?
And that's what I don't know. I've been asked that a lot. And someone asked me to like kind of be like, when would, and I'm like, I think I know. Like a lot of the time it's like, oh, well, let's say I've done well enough when I know that I could retire. For example, like say that I could turn around and go, I can retire right now and that's it. And like, not necessarily that I want to, but I could. And that's like me going, well, I've fulfilled my goals. As I think that's the goal, right? With working, I feel like that's kind of the goal. It's like you want to work until you can retire, and then even if you want to work beyond that, at least you know at any given point you can go, that's my fix. I'm out. And I think part of me always strives towards that. That's one thing in my head. But then when is that? I don't really know.
Where did you get that goal of being able to retire?
I don't know. I just that in my head that was always the goal of working. I think you work. You earn your pay. Eventually, you have enough where you go, yeah, I don't have to do this anymore. And that's not necessarily to say you stop, because I don't like being lazy. But that's at a point where I can go, well, it doesn't really... Because at that point, if I have enough, it doesn't matter if working brings nothing, and it doesn't matter if it brings everything, because I already had enough, so it doesn't really matter. At which point, I feel like then, maybe at that point, I think, I can stop saying this is a failure and this is like a success, because it doesn't really matter as long as I'm fulfilled and like I'm enjoying it. Right now I feel like I'd love to enjoy it, but also it's got to be like worthwhile. That's the thing. I like to enjoy the things I'm doing, but I also want them to be worthwhile. And at a certain point you can go, well, the whether it's worthwhile or not stops mattering, because I have what I need. It's just whether it satisfies me personally. That's it. That's how I feel.
Fantastic. So I think, Jack, there's a lot that I think we can learn here. I just don't know that I have the skill to help you. So I'm going to lean on you a lot, okay? And we may have a lot of false starts.
That's fine.
So let me ask you something. So let's say that you hit your target and you can retire, okay? Mm-hmm. And then at that point, you can work, and work will be free, because it could bring nothing or it could bring everything, and it would be the same to you, right?
That's what I like to think. I can't say that I'll get there and I'll be like, but let's say that's true, because it's hard to say.
So let's reverse it, okay? So let's look at it this way. When you fail, why does the failure hurt so much? It's because it doesn't advance you towards your goal. Does that sort of make sense?
Yeah. It also, to me, I get like in these like this. What if this disappears? Like, I'm very attached to what I do right now. I love it, right? And it's like, what if this is the beginning of the end? That's kind of how it always feels. It's like this weird, like, it's like the beginning of the apocalypse scenario, where I'm like, right, well, this is the beginning of the end. I see, like, I upload a YouTube video, it doesn't do very well. I'm like, right, well, I'm falling off, I'm gone. And it's like, well, that's a shame. I didn't get to do all the things I wanted to, but it's like, if I reach the point where I have done all those things, or I am at that point, then all of a sudden, doesn't matter if it starts declining, I did what I needed. But I'm not there yet.
Yeah, I'm with you. So let me kind of put it this way. Like, whether it brings nothing or brings everything hurts right now, because there's a big difference between those, right? Yes, and so if you make a YouTube video and it doesn't do well, then that falls into the brings nothing camp, and it has a consequence as a result. Yes. Does that make sense?
Totally. Yeah.
But what we're sort of saying is that once you check your boxes for retirement, then you can make something and it can bring nothing, and you can be okay with that, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So then, I know it sounds kind of weird, but let me give you a scenario. Let's say that you've got $100 million. I don't know how much you need to retire.
No,
$100 million or 100 million pounds or whatever.
It sounds enough.
in your bank account. And then you make content for a year, and you're making content and it has no consequences because you've got your 100 million pounds in the bank account, right? And so you're making content for fun. It's like some of it's succeeding, some of it's not succeeding. And then you're okay with that because it doesn't matter. You've got your 100 million pounds in the bank account, right? So you can make content freely. You're free. And that's what I'm really hearing, is that for you, the goal is freedom. Freedom from needing to worry about the consequences of your actions. Is that fair?
Yeah. I'd say that's it. Yeah.
So you make content for another year because you're like, I don't know how old you are, but let's say like by that point you're like 24. How old are you?
I'm 19.
Okay, great. So let's say $20 million a year for the next 5 years, easy. And then you're retiring at the age of 24. And then for the next, and then you're like, what am I going to do with my life? And you're like, I don't know. I'm going to just make content for fun. You make content for 2 years and it's lots of fun. And you enjoy yourself and you achieve what you're shooting for. Okay. These are your visions, not mine. And then on your 26th birthday, you realize that there's been some kind of financial theft, some identity fraud, and someone has stolen $95 million from you. Now, and not only did they steal it, they stole it 2 years ago. So you've actually never had it.
Right. Yeah.
What do you think about, like, do you think that your enjoyment, like if you kind of look back in time, like you still enjoyed yourself even though you really didn't have the money? You just sort of believed you had the money. What do you think about that?
Yeah. No, I feel like if someone could turn around now and promise me that it'll be fine, like it doesn't matter, there'll be ups and downs, blah, 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 but like at the end, you will be fine, this will work, then I'd stop worrying again. It's purely just the kind of like, I find that worrying is not only just unpleasant generally, but I find that it also inhibits me from doing the things I enjoy because it tends to cause I don't know how to describe it. Just let's leave it. Just it inhibits. And I think I just strive to be free of it. I think that's all it is. I think that's kind of always been it, really.
Yeah. So this is the terrifying thing. Okay. Now this is going to be hard, Jack, because the first is that you being free of it has nothing to do with the amount of money in your bank account.
No, and I kind of know that as well. Like I think that was it was an abstraction in a sense.
I'm with you.
Like,
I'm with you.
There's more to it than that, but yes, let's.
Yeah, right. So I think
course.
that like whether something brings nothing or brings everything has to do with your conception and the standard at which you're trying to fulfill. And I think the truly terrifying thing is that if you really want to be free from worry, you have to learn how to coast.
I think that,
right? Because once you have $100 million in the bank account, what are you going to be doing? You're going to be coasting.
Yeah. And I think that's the thing. I think I deep down really would like to coast.
Oh, yes.
But right now I can't justify it. Like I can't justify coasting. And I've never been able to. There's never been a point in my life where I feel like right now is the time to coast. That's never came. And I would really like for myself to feel like now's the time. And
so now I'm going to ask you, is the time to coast determined by something in here or something out there?
In my head, it's out there, but I want to say that perhaps it really should be in here. Like maybe I should make that decision, but I feel like it's out of my hands to a degree.
Sure. So I'm really glad you said that. I'm really glad you didn't say the quote unquote right and BS answer, which is like, oh, like coasting is like, it's all about like, you're in an environment. No. Right?
No. So there's a level at which you've like kind of got to be able to live.
Sure, absolutely. It. So I'm really glad that you got an authentic answer, and I want to be careful with that word "should," because I think that you're correct. That honestly, I hate to break this to you, Jack, but I think that retirement is going to be a goalpost that moves for you. You're gonna go a certain distance, and you're gonna say it's not enough. Right. And this is where like we can kind of go back and think a little bit about you're 19 now. How old were you when you started streaming?
17.
And what were your goals when you started streaming?
Yeah, not this at all. Not even to do it as a job. It was just to do it for fun. And then it became a job. And then it was like, what it was doing it for fun. And it was like, wait, I can leave my my IT job. That'd be great. This is so much better than doing IT. And then all of a sudden, when this became a job, it's like, right, now I've got to be successful in this. you know, because before it was be successful in the IT job, but
Sure.
now it's flipped.
And so I think that this is, I don't think you need to, you know, like become internally enlightened right away. I think it's okay to be attached to like external things, but I think deep down it's going to be tricky because what you're going to have to do is things that there's an overlap between doing things that make you feel lazy and being like internally satisfied with what you do. Does that make sense? I think we're going to have to move. I'm not going to suggest that you become lazy, but I think sometimes you beat yourself up for things that are probably actually okay. Yeah. And oddly enough, it's almost like if you want to, this is why it's hard. I'm trying to thread a lot of things together. So when you feel like you're not doing enough and that you beat yourself up and then you fail again, right? You with me? In that mindset? Yeah. The problem is in order to let go of that second failure, like the debuff, it has to be embracing the things that make you feel lazy. Does that make sense?
Right. Yeah. No, I think I get what that means. Yeah.
So like if you want to free yourself from the mental burden of, oh my God, I'm screwing up, you have to move a little bit more towards like accepting like what you call feeling lazy. I don't think it's actually laziness. But do you see how those two things are at the opposite ends of the spectrum? And I think 100%. I think if I ask you to do that, you will kick and scream. You don't want to do that. So
I think I possibly know it's best for me, but I don't think I would naturally fall into it at all. It'd be a real challenge. Yes.
Yeah, that's what I mean. So I think you've already figured out that this is like not ideal. And at the same time, you're going to fight it. Like that's why it's hard, Jack. Because it isn't a simple answer. It's not like you're doing something wrong and you need to do something right. It's actually that you're doing something right. And if you want to move forward, you need to start doing things that are wrong.
Sure.
That's why it's hard and very few people figure it out. And it's like a struggle for humanity. What?
No, the struggle for humanity line was like, wow, that really made my problem big.
What do you mean?
Oh, it feels, I don't know. I feel like I'm also very inclined to kind of see things as I kind of forget that other people struggle with the same things a lot of the time. Like I think I have a very like, they look fine. They're doing fine. They don't have this worry that I have, most likely. And it's unrealistic, but I feel like when you look at people, I don't often assume. So when you say humanity, I'm like, this isn't just me.
It's not just you. What do you see when you look at other people, Jack?
It really depends. I feel like I see there's certain people. So this is the thing. I think I do compare myself quite a lot. Because I was always this is something that everyone always quotes as being like the source of a problem. But I'm gonna bring up this cliche of like being the kid that did well in school, and what happens is you leave. And all of a sudden, especially in this sphere where it's huge and there's so many people, I'm not the best at it. Where in school I was the best at most, like a lot of the things I did, at least compared to my peers. So all of a sudden, the comparison thing wasn't a problem because if I compare myself to people, it's like, yeah, I'm beyond that. And it was like, yeah, I'm doing better than that. That's great. No one can expect anything more of you when you're doing the best. That's how I felt. But now I'm in a position where I'm not doing the best. There's also a part of me that is striving to be the best. And as much as I know that isn't realistic, because I'm in a huge, huge sphere of very, very talented people, way more talented than myself. But there's a little part of my brain which is like, let's try and be the best at this. Let's be the absolute best at this.
So, Jack,
I lost where I was going with that entirely.
Totally
I felt like that was going to tie into something.
Well, no, you're doing great, man. So I want to point something out to you. I've noticed something. So this is going to be kind of a meandering conversation, okay? So like, what? Sorry, but have you noticed that you'll oftentimes make statements about like deep down, I know this, but this, or on some level, I feel like this, but this. Have you kind of noticed that within you, there's like this war between like...
There's a lot of conflict. Yes.
Yeah.
I'm very conflicted a lot.
Who are those two people? Like you get the sense there's two people in there?
Yeah. No. Okay. Yeah, I think so. And it's probably... the part of me that just wants to like enjoy things and purely just enjoy things. Like that's it. Like that's all I want to do. If I'm doing something, I want to do it for maximum enjoyment, whether that's working, whether that's anything, it's purely for me. And there's a part of me that's like, you need to be able to live and you need to do well and you need to succeed. And like, it's trying to balance those two. But I find that the succeeding one tends to trump the enjoyment one. And I don't know why, but I've got this weird idea in my head that success is more important than enjoyment. Like, I like, as much as I kind of know that shouldn't be true, because I also, if I was to sit down and get really like philosophical and discuss like what I view life as, it's like it's ultimately all down to just making the most of whatever time you have. So you should enjoy it, right? But like, I also don't want to shorten that time or whatever by being unsuccessful, which in my head is how it works, which possibly is a very big leap. But
so I'm gonna name the two parts of you, and you let me know if these fit. So one is the part of you that knows what is true, and the other one is the part of you that knows what should be true.
oh wait, hold on. That's a very like subtle wording difference between the two things, right?
So what you
The
know
one
to
that
be
knows what
true and what should be true.
Oh, okay. Right. Yes. No, totally. Okay. Yeah.
Does that fit?
Yeah. Perfect. Yeah.
Yeah. So this kind of goes back to your sense of self, right? Because I think you're not going to be able to figure out who you are when these two things are so like, I mean, that's a huge gap, man. What you know is actually true, like what your actual experience is, what your mind tells you, hey, man, moving is a waste of time.
Yeah.
And then there's the other part of you that's like I have to move though. And, but the other part's like, fuck it. Moving is a waste of time.
This is taking time, and I don't want to do it. Like, yeah. I mean, I know that to be the case because I've had this house since the 24th of September. I've been paying for it since then. I moved this week because I've been pushing it off because I've been busy and I've been like, I don't have time to move yet. And it's like, it was so stupid. Eventually, it got to the point where I'm like, okay, I'm being dumb. I'm being like, I own a house that I'm not using. I should go and live in it. But it was like, it took me nearly 2 months of like. And I said it was because I was busy, but I think it was ultimately just because I knew I'd do this, where I'm like, this is a waste of time.
Yeah, so I think when you get caught between what you know to be true and what should be true, you feel dumb. What do you think about that?
Yeah, maybe. Yeah, maybe dumb. Let me think. Yeah, wait. That might be the right one, but I'm just trying to think about it. Yeah, dumb.
Yeah, right? Because you said like this is dumb. I haven't moved in.
Yeah, like that felt stupid. Like I felt really dumb. I'm like I could move. I mean, I lived with my parents. I didn't have much stuff to move, and it was like just pack it up and move. And I didn't pack it up till the very day before because I booked the removal van. And I'm like, oh, I have to do it now. Like that was how I motivate myself to do it. It was like, right, well, I've booked the van, so I have to get this stuff packed before it arrives. I wouldn't have done it otherwise because that's what I tried to do: pack it and then book the van. It just never happened. I just wouldn't do it.
Yeah. So I'm also noticing, so I'm just going to kind of rephrase that again. I think when you get stuck between these two things is when you end up, it doesn't sort of matter because like you're always letting one of them down, right? If you're stuck between the two of them. Or you're paralyzed and not even moving towards either one.
Which is the worst.
Right? And that's when you beat yourself up.
Mm-hmm.
So in terms of, if we want to try to understand, like, okay, like now, I almost feel like I should pull out the iPad here, but so here's, on a high level, I'm going to try to summarize, because I think we've hit a lot of good things, but I think that it's kind of confusing. Would you agree?
Sure. Yeah, I'd say it's confusing.
So let's just start from the top, okay? So you're very mentally busy, because there's a lot of stuff you should be doing, right? And you're very success-driven. You're very outcome-oriented. So you know what you need to do. Your to-do list is probably far beyond what you're capable of, but it's all important stuff that could get done. And you drive towards it. You also acknowledge that, despite the fact that you are sometimes hard on yourself and push yourself, that you probably wouldn't be where you are unless you did those things, right? So even though there's a part of you that wants to change and wants to relax and wants to coast and wants to enjoy being 19 years old, which theoretically should be the best time of your life, and I'm sure you were genuinely having fun too. I don't get the sense that your life is all sad and all that stuff.
No. I do have fun. I then just come away from it like, oh wow, I didn't do anything. But I do enjoy it. And in the moment, I'm having a great time, a lot.
So that's exactly beautifully said, right? So like in the moment, you're enjoying. So there's one thing over here, and you're like, all right, let's do that thing. And then the second you're done, there's that other voice that's like, hey, dumbass, You could have been
You
doing
didn't do
something.
any of the things, yeah.
Right?
It's like,
And so it's almost like anytime you reach towards happiness, like this voice comes in and takes it away from you.
Mm.
And then then what happens is you like go towards that person, right? Who's like, work, Jack, work, son, grind, boy. And then you do all those kinds of things. And then there's some like voice inside you that's like, hey, like, like maybe this is not how I should be living right now. And then the other voice is like, no, it's okay. You can do that when you retire. We're grinding for a reason. I'm doing this for you, bro. We're grinding so that you can have fun later.
Yeah.
Right? And then like anytime, so if you go towards one side of the pole, like either if you pick one, then later the other will come to haunt you. And so sometimes you're stuck between the two, and then like anytime you're stuck, either you don't choose and then you really beat yourself up, then everyone's on the same page. Then everyone's like, hey, you're not having fun and you're not being productive. Like, what's wrong? Then both the sides of the poles are like, hey, we're unified. We can align over one thing, which is that you should be doing better.
Yeah.
And then I think when you feel that way, you sort of feel dumb.
Totally. Yeah.
How is that for a summary so far?
Good. I think that's very good. Yeah. No,
Okay.
That's perfect.
So now, Jack, what do we do about that? Any thoughts? I'm just curious. You don't have to have answers. I think it's really hard.
You see, there's a realistic part of me, and there's like there's a part of me that wants to go, you know what, go towards the fun one, because that's great, and you're gonna enjoy your life. I'm 19 years old. I got this great opportunity. Let's just enjoy it. But the thing is, if I carry on, if I keep just striving for enjoyment, I'll lose it. I know I will. Like, I know what I'll do. I'll go out and have fun, and then realize like I didn't do anything, and this is gonna disappear beneath my feet. But so the realistic part of me is like, find a balance. Find a balance is probably the thing I should be doing, but I'm I can't. I don't know. I'm not very good at that.
Yeah. So what makes it hard for you to find a balance?
Because I'm not. Ooh, that's a hard one. I don't. So I'm going to think about it, or I'm just going to say it again for a few minutes.
Sure.
I suppose it's kind of the idea of which feels more important than the other. And in a moment, I can never really decide. So it's very hard for me to balance it. I basically got the way the thought process works in my head of balancing it is I have a dilemma, right? Over something. I don't know. Say someone's invited me out, but I could be getting on with one of the million things I could be doing. And it's like, right, well, I'm going to sit there and I'm going to think, I could go and do that thing. Or I could do this thing. And in that moment, I struggle a lot to go, which one of these is the most important route to take for me right now? And sometimes I can. Sometimes I can go, you know what? I've worked a lot recently. These are my friends. Tonight I should go do something. And sometimes it's like, hey, I'm really behind. But when I'm not leaning to an extreme where I'm either really behind or I'm really ahead and I'm doing all right, when I'm kind of in that middle ground of, could go one way or the other, I struggle to make the decision.
Okay. So oddly enough, that doesn't sound like balance to me. That sounds kind of like torture.
Right.
What is that fair to say, or is that
potentially? I feel like it's. Is
that how it feels?
I don't. I think that's where the paralysis kicks in. I don't know. That's where I go and freeze up.
Yeah. So I got an emotional reaction there. I wasn't sure if that emotional reaction was absurdity because I'm completely off base, or that was striking a chord.
I don't know.
Okay.
It's one of those things where I don't think I've ever sat back and reflected on how I feel about that. So you said it, and I'm like, God, that's quite a harsh word to use, and I don't know whether it's quite fitting or not. It was just a bit of like a whoa. I've not had a chance to think.
So what I'm kind of hearing is that so let me put it this way. Which feels more important in the moment doesn't sound to me like balance. It sounds like a pendulum.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So what I'm kind of hearing is if you've sometimes if you're at extreme ends of the poles, it's very easy to make a decision because you're like, oh, I've grinded way too hard. Let me swing back this way.
Yeah, it's so obvious. In that moment, it's an obvious decision. It's
Yeah.
the second it becomes not so obvious. I've never been great at making decisions. Full stop. Like that's one thing I know about myself. Very poor at decision
Never
making.
is a short time for you because you're 19.
Yeah. Oh no, I know, but as of yet, I've not been great at making decisions.
So I didn't mean to be condescending there, but I think
No.
You're doing good, Jack, and I think you got to cut yourself some slack because you know you're.
I appreciate that.
But what I'm kind of noticing is like, you know, you like it's easy when you're at an extreme because then you can swing the pendulum back the other way. But like balance is not a pendulum. In fact, pendulum is the exact opposite of a balance, right? It's like swinging back and forth. Like balance is this. If I could do this, it's not going to balance. Okay, whatever.
It's very hard, but
yeah,
I get what you're trying to do.
And so I think what maybe what concerns you is that I'm concerned that if we think about like balancing this pen, for example, the tricky thing is that let's say like this is the work end of the pen and this is the leisure end of the pen. And you're actually like kind of okay over here. The problem is that if we like are not careful and you kind of go too far on the leisure side, I get the sense that you may be afraid that you'll like fall off a cliff. And so like you're like, oh, I should let myself coast a little bit more. I should let my coast a little bit more. I should let myself coast a little bit more. But if I coast too much, it'll all come crumbling down. Yeah. And it is
I'll like spot like a minor slip. Like I'll spot like the littlest thing that isn't doing as well as it was like say a week ago, and it's like, whoa, it's the beginning of the fall, and I'll you know like slide back over the other way.
Yeah. So I think that the reason it's hard because when you're moving towards balance, I think you run away from balance actually. Mm-hmm. And then you get burnt out or fed up. And then you pendulum swing towards self-care. Mm-hmm. And then you do that for a day or two and you're like back to the grind. Like I've taken a day or two off, like got to go back to it. And so I get the sense that it's a pendulum. And furthermore, if you want balance, you've got to like, I know it's going to be scary, but you got to like let yourself kind of coast. Like, does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay. So I think the next thing, Jack, that I kind of want to ask you is like, if we want to understand, so if this is the structure, you're torn between these two things. Sometimes it's easy to make decisions, but in that middle space, it's really hard for you to make the decisions. And then furthermore, in the middle space, you also engage in some amount of like self-blame, feeling stupid.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm not saying that your head is like a toxic wasteland of just like shame. And,
no, I wouldn't say it was either. I wouldn't say that's fair, but yeah.
Yeah, so I just want to make it clear I'm not implying that. But in terms of when the debuff happens that gives you task paralysis and all these other like negative manifestations, I really think it comes from something about what we're talking about. Is that fair?
Yeah, I would say so. Yeah.
So I think if we want to understand where that comes from, I'd like to ask you about your past. Are you okay with that?
Yeah, of course.
So can you tell me a little bit about where you grew up or what growing up was like for you?
Sure. Well, I just moved away from where I grew up. I grew up in a slightly it's actually quite a big UK town. It's not very well connected. There's not much going on there. So I and not much going on where I was from. Parents are together. Fine. You know, I wouldn't say it doesn't feel like, obviously, of course, everyone's childhood has an impact, but I couldn't say there's any big events where I'd go, this was a really big deal for me, and this has changed me, and this. I'd say I grew up with my parents, and I'd say possibly I was a bit sheltered. In fact, no, I'd say even now, I've just moved, and I realize I have no idea how to do so many things, and I'll figure it out, because I do. I'm pretty confident in myself. But I'm like, I have no idea what I'm doing, and I'll figure it out. I'm not worried about it, but I do realize I'm perhaps a little bit underprepared at times, and that just comes from being a little bit sheltered. But otherwise, that's. Okay. I mean, if you have any specific questions you're trying to target, then I'm happy to answer them. But sure. I don't have anywhere to go.
So let's just acknowledge one or two things. So oftentimes, people, when we think about the past, we think like, oh, like, are we looking for a smoking gun? You know, was there a time where like you were supposed to be like lead singer in your like 7th standard play, and the teacher didn't like you, so they had some other kid do it? and you
Right, yeah.
were filled with the hatred and resentment, and you're going to become a supervillain in a Marvel movie at some point.
Yeah,
because
like
of
an
that.
origin story type.
Yeah,
Yeah,
like
yeah.
it's like, Hitler didn't get accepted to art school, and so that's why we have the
Yeah,
Holocaust.
exactly.
So
Right,
so I
yeah.
think the first thing to understand is that for most human beings, like that's not the case. Like so sometimes people do have extreme like, trauma or whatever.
Of
But
course.
I
Yeah.
still think that, for example, the way that you look at yourself and the way that you navigate your internal environment is likely to be shaped, at least in part, by some experiences early in life. Things
Oh,
like your
100%. Yeah.
priorities, your values, what's okay and what's not okay. Like, even if you think about coast versus grind, where you
Yeah.
are on that spectrum oftentimes is like conditioned,
Right. Yes.
right? So I'm the child of two physicians. And so there are like certain basic things that like were baked into me in terms of how hard I should study, what's interesting, what I should try to do, that like, other human beings are like more important than I am. There are all kinds of stuff that's like baked into me based on my upbringing. It doesn't have to be like traumatic, but it's absolutely
No. Of course
transformative.
not. No. Of course not. I more meant that when you ask about my childhood, there's not.
Yeah.
Unless you're looking for something specific, I don't have anything
So
really specific to tell you.
I've got one or two things I'm really curious about. Any
Yes,
siblings?
of course. Yes, one. I got a little
Older,
brother.
younger?
Younger.
Okay. And then, can you just tell me like what were things like at home? I'm not fishing for anything negative, and I'm not going to make your parents out to be evil people or anything. Just like
No,
like
not
what
at
was?
all.
Just tell me like what are your parents like? What's it like to,
They're very supportive in this. But I find that they're very like, and not in a. This is where it's because I've kind of made an effort to understand their motivation in it. It's not in a sort of pushy sense, but like they want me to succeed, and purely just so I'm comfortable and happy. The same way, kind of, I want me to succeed. The reasoning is very similar, but I feel like they also will be like when I was at home, I would be reminding myself of the things I had to do. And they would as well. Like they would be like, "Hey, you still have to do this thing." Like no, if I was trying to relax, I often found that someone would be like, if I made that conscious decision that I've chosen, like I'm just going to enjoy myself for a bit. It could be disrupted by the, "Hey, you have this thing to do," and it's like, yeah. And often I'd get annoyed, and they couldn't really figure out why. And it's like, yeah, the reason is because I'm aware of that. I know I have that thing to do. I'm already fighting off my own. Hey, you got to do this thing. To have you come in and then go, you got to do this, is like that. Like now it's too much, and now I'm annoyed.
what would? Yeah, go ahead.
So that was. I think that's something that possibly causes me to work a bit more as well, because it's like if I manage to finally reconcile it with myself, the second someone else comes along, especially someone like I feel with like parents. This is me, and probably most people as well. But I'm very. Even if I know it's not true, I will take their word as almost gospel. Even if I know that shouldn't be done, because I know that they don't always know the best. In my head, I can't shake the, I'm just going to listen to what they say because they're my parents and I've got this relationship of trust. So, even though logically I'm quite aware that why would they know about that thing? Like why, I'm like, yep, they've told me to do that thing. That's the thing,
So I just want to point out once again that there's that thing again. Like there's the part of you that knows that you don't really need to listen to them, and then there's the like I'm just hearing this, like this is the big thing, Jack. Every time I ask you a question, there's always two sides to the answer.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I suspect that much of your lack of peace comes from the moment that those two sides become like uniform, you will be at peace.
Yeah, that would be, if that ever happens, that'd be great. I'm trying to think of a time where they have been, and I'm like, I'm not sure it's happened, but
yeah, we'll get there. So, and I think that like, you'll know who you are when that happens.
Because, exactly. That's one thing I've thought about. That's another thing. When I was thinking about that, I feel like a lot of the time I've been following the instruction of, in a way, my parents, because of what I was saying, and then also just kind of this voice. I've just been following what it tells me to do, and teachers and things like that. I'm very black and white. When people tell me things, I take them very literally, and I kind of fulfill them to a very accurate degree. And I found that means that I'm I feel like someone who's really great at taking instructions. That's what I feel like. That's me. I'm really good at, if you tell me to do something, doing that thing well. But I got to be told to do it. Like, even with content creation, you know, I mean, this is normal, but still, I've sought advice from plenty of other people and just kind of done what they said, and that's how I got here. Because I'll give myself credit and say I did what they told me well, but I only felt confident because other people told me to do what I was doing. It's very rare that I will just kind of sit down, formulate a plan by myself, and you know, it happens. But
How does it feel to do well at something that someone tells you to do?
I mean, same as it does to do well at anything. I feel like doing well is fulfilling. I don't think because someone else told me to do it, someone else telling me to do it gives me that layer of confidence that it's. Ooh, no. Let me think about how to word that. This is when I used to work a job, right? When I used to work like a 9 to 5, my only goal in that job essentially is to like do what the boss tells me to do to a level of satisfaction that they're happy with. That's it. That's all I have to do. It's a very simple role. But all of a sudden, now I'm my boss, and I find it very hard to go, Jack, what should I do? And Jack, because the thing is, I'm biased towards my own enjoyment. I'm biased to go, hey Jack, what should I do today? Hey Jack, go put your feet up, sit down, watch TV. You know, where my boss wouldn't do that. They would keep me at a level of productivity that is necessary. But when I leave that 9 to 5 job, I go home, I do what I want. That was the structure that as much as I didn't enjoy the job, I didn't find it like that fulfilling. I kind of liked the structure of I go in, I do what I'm told from 9 to 5, and I know I've done enough for that day. I go home, I do what I want. That kind of distinction worked for me because it wasn't in my control.
Okay, so Jack, this is where things are going to get weird because you've just told me what your internal experience is like. And so theoretically, the statement that you just made is the one that I should respect and listen to the most. And yet it is the one that I'm going to disagree with you with.
And which one was that?
So you said that you're biased towards your own enjoyment, so you don't know what to do. It was easy when you had someone telling you what to do because you could just set aside your own enjoyment and fulfill their expectations. If anything, I think this is like the thing I disagree with the most strongly.
Okay. I get what you're saying. I think, but the thing is, this is where I know where you're coming from, and I'm going to explain how I think it works.
Sure.
And that is,
please.
I am biased towards my own enjoyment. Therefore, knowing I'm biased towards my own enjoyment, I do the exact opposite, where I kind of go, no, you're being biased. You shouldn't do that. And then, do you know what I mean? Like,
yes,
I know
I was about to go there too.
Yes. Yeah. No,
Yeah.
naturally, I am biased
so
towards my own enjoyment.
you
Of course I am.
overcompensate. But
Yes.
if we really think about it, that overcompensation is driven by the non-enjoyment side.
Yeah.
So I would even argue that the master controller up here is not your enjoyment. It is the fear that you are biased towards your own enjoyment that causes you to overcompensate on the other side and grind even twice as hard.
Sure.
So what's in control there? It's not the enjoyment.
No. It's not. It's not. I kind of know that. I think it's just. I think
Jack, how do you feel about that?
I mean, not all that shocked because I think I probably did know that. But I think it's like, yeah, you make a good point of because I do feel like that. It's like, well, I feel like I would unchecked by myself, which is a very weird thing to say. But if I was unchecked by myself, I would go off the reins and just do what I want to enjoy. So therefore, because I'm know that I'm like that, which I'm technically not because I stopped myself, but because I feel like I'm like that somewhere, I do the exact opposite, which is I'm glad that you're nodding your head because that feels like a complicated system to explain, but you seem to get it.
So it is the fear of letting your unchecked, degenerate Jack self go completely wild that causes you to actually tighten the reins. And I think this is why you actually, like you said, it's easy when you've got someone else to please. Because in a bizarre way, when you've got someone else to please, like if you have to please your parents, you know they're going to watch out for enjoyment, Jack. You know that they may come and remind you a little bit, but like at the end of the day, like it's kind of out of your hands. Whereas it's much more terrifying to like hold that balance yourself.
Yeah, I'm responsible for if I don't do enough. Where before, like in schools and blah, 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 it's like someone else was telling me how much to do, and I just have to do that amount before enjoyment me can go, right, we've done what we need to do. Let's do that. Now it's like I have no idea how much I'm supposed to do. I'm just that, you know, it's overwhelming.
Yeah, because now, like, so Jack, you said you were a good student, right?
Yeah.
You got A's?
Yeah.
Are you getting A's now?
I mean, this is the thing with what we do, right? It's really relative. So am I getting A's? I don't really know. I mean, I can't categorize it. I mean, I've got numbers that say these are good numbers, but there's people with better numbers. There's also people with worse numbers. It's
Now
A was as high as it went. Now it's like the sky's the limit with this, and that's
so
almost worse.
How are you supposed to know when you can relax if you don't have A's?
Exactly. That's a lot of what I feel like. Yeah.
Right? It's terrifying.
Mhm.
It sounds to me like an unsolvable problem because you can never get an A in Twitch streaming. There's no official authority that says, good job, Jack. You were at the top of your class.
Yeah. The only thing that would be that is if they ranked them all and I was number one. That's the only way I'd go, I've done enough. And I know that. Like, I know deep down, as much as that's so unrealistic, and it's not like, it's not some like sick, like world domination
I know that
drive.
but. Here it is again.
Yeah, no, of course. And it's not, I'm not trying to argue that I've got like some like weird like ego, like I must be the best because I am the best. It's not that. It's if I'm the best, then I don't have to work any harder because I've worked as hard as anyone else on earth. No one else is doing better than me. I've done enough. No one can tell me I'm not doing enough. I'm there. But while I'm not at the very, very top, then there's always in my mind someone who's doing more than me. And then I'm like, well,
yeah,
is that allowed?
So I want to just echo that I don't think it's ego at all. And I don't think you're upset that someone else is doing more than you. What I think it really is if someone else is doing more than you, then you know that you could be doing more.
Yes.
Right? So even like and this comes back to retirement. It's like, why is retirement your target? I think retirement is like cognitively or emotionally the same thing as being at the top of your class, because then you've made it. Checkbox. I've done enough. It's always about, have I done enough? Have I done everything that can be done?
Yeah,
and it feels to me like
those two are the same. Yeah, I'd agree. Yeah, those two things are kind of the two fulfillment criteria. So, and the reason I mentioned retirement is because it's the more realistic of the two. You know,
I'm with you. Yeah, I think they're both like, so do you see how there's like a shared emotional need? I'm going to call it emotional. Let's step away from that word, actually. There's a shared need between those two goals that allows you to relax. It's like, I'm not allowed to relax until I have achieved certain things.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah.
So now I have to figure out, how am I going to help you with this? Do you have any ideas?
Ooh, the one thing that people have always tried to tell me is kind of be satisfied in little goals. Like set little goals and be satisfied by achieving those, but it just doesn't tend to work.
Idiotic.
Yeah, it doesn't work because what happens is because I've done it, and then what happens is I finish one goal, I'm like, cool, on to the next one. Like, it's just a checklist at that point. It's all it does is what you're providing me with is steps between the final one, but ultimately I'm still striving for the same thing.
Yeah, I'm with you, because I think that the issue here is you've got to let go of your goal, which I think you're gonna. So I mean, I know, I kind of know where you need to go, Jack. I just think it's gonna be tough. So, or I have an idea. So let me ask you this. Like, let me just think. Is there some other way that we can get to this? What was it like being in school?
So it came easy to me for a long time. So it was actually really great because what had happened was I could get to the top with very little work and actually have a lot of enjoyment time. Was most of school. And then it got to like the last year or two, and then it became, oh, I've actually got to work to be at the top because it's now like difficult. I'm in big boy school. And all of a sudden there's now less time to enjoy myself, and naturally I enjoy it less, and I'm not having fun because I wouldn't let myself slip from that top position to compensate for not, it's like what I could have done is carried on having the same level of fun and done worse in school, but like, hey, I enjoyed my time and I still did fine. Or do what I did, which is, well, I want to carry on getting the A's that I was getting. I'll work harder, but I hated it. I didn't enjoy it because I didn't find it to be particularly fulfilling work. It was just the goal was fulfilling, but the actual work itself was tedious.
Okay, I'm going to just toss out some words, connect some dots. You let me know if it resonates. And I think we may have a way forward here. So first of all, I think you're mentally busy in your sense of self. This is all related. And here's how I understand it. So like, you've got two warring voices, right? And in the past, those voices have been, you never had to resolve the conflict between like white and black because there was an external measure which could satisfy both sides. Like once you were at the top of your class, you don't like, you were trying to figure out, okay, do I need to study today or do I not need to study today? And you never had to resolve the internal conflict because you relied on an external thing to tell you what to do.
Yes.
With me?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So as you have transitioned from school to IT to Twitch streaming, the external influences that can resolve that external conflict for you are no longer there. As a result, you are left with the internal conflict, and you just simply haven't learned because you haven't needed to. And this is the other thing, Jack, that's kind of surprising is a lot of people sort of never need to, right? Because they move into work structures.
Yeah, without doing this, I would never have had to myself. I would have carried on doing what I was doing.
You would have gone for promotion, and then you would have gone for promotion, and then you would have like, there's always a step ladder that some corporation or school or something else could objectively rank you at, and you would have been a very successful, very driven, very content kind of person, like in a weird way. Is that understandable?
Yeah, no, I agree, yeah.
So now the tricky thing is that without some kind of external grading system to let you relax, you are struggling with this idea of how do I relax? When is it okay to relax? And that in turn becomes even more problematic because like there's always something you can do, right? Like as a streamer, like you can always like check your socials more. You can always micromanage the thumbnails for your YouTube videos. You can always be DMing people to set up potential collabs. You can always upgrade your hardware and talk to someone else about a partnership or a merch launch, or like there's always something you could be doing. So given an endless pile of tasks to do, and given a complete absence of a grading system to tell you it's okay to relax, you don't know how to relax. And so you end up with this kind of thing where you grind. And even like in your deepest parts of yourself, you're like, this is absurd. This is enough. I deserve to relax. And then you kind of swing that way. But then like what happens is you become mentally busy. As you're sitting there hanging out by the beach, with your friends, y'all are chilling. The first 24 hours, you're like totally fine. 36 hours, you're like, hey, maybe I should, let me check Discord and get back to one or two emails, like whatever you use, Twitter DMs or Insta, whatever, I don't know. And then thoughts start creeping in. And then you're like, oh, I've relaxed too much. Like, let me start working again. Or even somewhere in the middle there, it's like 2 days in, you start to get conflicted because you're like, oh, like, I was going to take a long weekend with my friends, but then you're not paralysis, but almost your parents come into the room and be like, hey, you should be studying. And you're like, no, I set aside these 72 hours for me to relax and I'm going to take care of it on Monday. But then that voice kind of creeps in. It's like, hey, did you forget? And you're like, no, I didn't forget. Like it's accounted for. And over time, like this, it's almost like an anxiety kind of builds up and then other things start to pile on. It's like, oh my God, like if I know I took 72 hours for a vacation, but like I'm going to miss out on this opportunity. And then like this thing could happen. And then like I should be doing this. And like the anxieties kind of grow. And eventually I think a fear sets in. That since I don't know when to relax, I have to grind because if I don't do it now, it could come falling apart. And I don't know where I'm going to be. I don't know that I'll be able to retire. I'll be able to relax once I'm dead, right? It's kind of like this, this kind of pressure of like, okay, like once I hit that point, then I can sort of relax. And what I'm sort of hearing is that fear sets in at some point. Fear of consequences, fear of missed opportunities, fear of not doing enough. And then like also social media and stuff is kind of adding on and kind of saying, oh, like, did you see what that person is doing? Maybe I should be doing that too.
Yeah.
right? So all those kind of thoughts set in. And at the end of the day, like you're kind of where you are, which is like very successful, very grateful. I get a lot of genuine gratitude. I don't get the sense that you blame anyone. I don't get the sense that you're egotistical. But internally, I do get the sense of some amount of like, you don't really know who you are. And you don't know exactly how long this is. There's just a lot of unknowns and uncertainty.
Yeah. No. Yeah. Exactly. Yeah.
And so, yeah. Anything that I got wrong or anything that you want to add or anything you think we're missing? Is that you?
No, I feel like, yeah, there's a pretty good summary. There's one thing I suppose that I might add just to, there's always this part of me as well that as I'm telling you this is like, I hope I'm not telling you who I think I am and not what I'm not, sorry. And not what I, like, my words, I'm just stumbling a bit.
Yeah.
I don't want to be telling you all this because there's also a part of me that is, when I'm telling you all this, it's like, is this who I am or is this who I think I am? And actually, there's little parts of me that are just altering things. Like, am I really conflicted or am I really just lazy? Like, there's that little voice that's like, you know what I mean? Like there's that part of me that's like, I'm telling you all this, and that's great. And if this is the case, then like, you know, I feel less lazy because this doesn't sound like a lazy person, what you're describing. And I'm like, but am I picking my words carefully to deceive you? Because then you won't look at me as lazy. Because that's also a thing. I would hate that.
Jack, so here's the key thing. This is going to be hard. Okay. So by the way, you're doing fantastic. We are sort of at the barrier of like some very abstract, weird mental stuff that's hard to pin down.
Cool.
So I want you to think about your thought just now. I'm going to ask you a question that I'm 99% sure you're not going to be able to answer, but I want you to just try anyway. Where does that thought come from? Where's the origin of that? Oh, this sounds real, but what if I'm just lazy and I'm tricking this guy to seem like it's okay that I'm doing this, but I'm just lazy? Like, where is that thought coming from?
So one thing that makes me feel better is, like you said earlier, when people tell me, like that, you right now are almost an external factor that's telling me I'm doing enough. Almost like right now, that's what you're kind of fulfilling, and that makes me feel better. But what I can do as a person who can, because ultimately you only know what I tell you. So what I can do is manipulate my words cleverly enough to make you believe I'm doing enough, because then you tell me I'm doing enough, and I can relax. It's like in school, right? I did this a couple of times in school where I genuinely was like. It's like, hey, did you do that homework? No, I didn't get time. I'll do it tomorrow. Really, I just forgot. But I'm making them look like I wasn't being lazy about it. I'm making them feel like I'm giving them some excuse that seems a bit more reasonable. And people pass less judgment. You know, blah blah blah. You don't, whatever. And I think I'm losing my train of thought here, so I'm going to try and get myself back on it. I've gotcha.
You just keep going.
It's like that comes from the part of me that is like, scared that what I'm doing is so when you turn around and it's like, you're not lazy, blah, blah, blah. There's the part of me that's like doubting that and going, no, he's not lying to you. Like, I don't think you're lying to me. But what I think is that I have manipulated what I've said in a way to make you say that because that's what I wanted to hear. And therefore, I'm still actually lazy. I've just made you affirm me so I feel better. And there's a fear of that happening. And that's, I think, where I don't know if necessarily that answers the question is where does that thought come from, but that explains the process.
Very good. So, I don't know if you've noticed this, Jack, but I have not told you that I think you're doing enough. Have you noticed that?
No, you've not said those words exactly.
Yeah, why don't you think I've said those? I know.
I don't know. No, I can tell you why you haven't said that.
What would you feel if I told you, Jack, I think you're doing a fantastic job. I think you are doing enough. What would happen?
That's great. And then there's a little part of me that goes, we're having this discussion. Naturally, of course, you're going to say that.
So this is what's happening, right? So if I say, Jack, I think you're young. Give yourself time. You'll get there. Have some faith in yourself. How would you respond to that? Forgive my sarcastic tone. I could say genuinely.
No. But like, I'd be like, it's nice, and it would allow me for a period to go, yeah, maybe I should. But then what would happen is
there's that but.
The thing that you're affirming me that I should relax, and what will happen is I'll do a stream that doesn't do great, or subs are down, or something. Just like something is down, and then that affirms me in the opposite direction. That goes, so Dr. K was wrong. You aren't doing enough because here's a number that says so.
Beautiful, right? So here's the thing. It comes back to the war between the two. There's the content you and the grind you. Okay?
And there's a way of affirming both. I think that's also...
So if I say that you're going to do enough, if I say, Jack, you're so, like, you've come so far for your age, man. You're such an awesome, like, you've come so far, like, you've so much to be grateful for. You deserve to relax, bro. You're 19. Have the time of your life, dude. Go out. You shouldn't be grinding. You can grind when you're 29. I could say all those things, and there'd be a part of you that would listen, right? Because remember, there's two parts of you. And then that other part of you would be like, no, it's not enough, right? This guy doesn't understand. It'll start saying these kinds of things, right? Because he's not like, I'm not actually like a streamer, or your mind will generate all kinds of ideas to devalue what I say. So I've tried really hard to not engage with that part. And despite the fact that I've never told you, I think you're doing enough, I've never told you, I think you're doing a good job, somehow you are feeling more relaxed. You are feeling like, oh, I am actually doing a good job. This is okay. This is okay. This is the signal that I'm sending you subconsciously, and you are receiving it. And the moment that I send you that signal and you start to really receive it, that little thing is like, I'm tricking him. Because if your mind convinces you that you're tricking me, then it invalidates everything that I've tried to say. So I've tried to be a subtle fucker because I'm talking to you and I'm talking to that other part of you, and I'm trying to trick it. And now I've tricked you, but it is not buying my BS. It detects what I'm doing and starts to doubt and starts to warn you. It's a warning because, oh my God, Jack, what would happen if I made you feel like you're doing okay?
Yeah, I could stop doing as much, and then all this will disappear.
Yeah, exactly, right? And that's that part of you. So here's the thing, Jack. Why do you believe that at the core of it, what I'm getting is that there's a part of you that believes very strongly. I know this is maybe a stretch, but if you are this is going to be hard for me, but let me try. So if there's a part of you that tricks so two options, right? One is you're being authentic right now and you're not actually lazy, and I'm sort of like I'm authentically reading you and I'm authentically responding to you, and this is truth. You with it?
Yeah. Sure.
And then there's another part of you that's like, you're tricking me. And that invalidates my support of you because I'm being tricked. But if you're tricking me, that means that there's a part of you that genuinely believes like you're lazy. Does that make sense? Because the only way you could trick me into believing you're not lazy is like, does that make sense? It's like, it has to come from a belief that you're lazy.
Yes, it does. Yeah.
So where does that come from? Like, why do you believe you're lazy? Why are you afraid you're lazy? Maybe that's a better question.
I'm afraid of it because I don't know. I feel like I think that's maybe one thing that's been instilled in me through school, parents, is everyone has kind of instilled in me that I shouldn't be. So I think that's maybe just like kind of it's one of those like 7 deadly sins that's like in my brain. It's like, you know, thou shalt not be lazy. It's just in my head, you know what I mean?
Yeah, sure. So I'm going to ask you a question, Jack. When did the installation of the fear that you were lazy, like when was how old were you when you started being worried that you might be lazy?
Probably at the point where it began to matter. So that would be when I felt like I had to start working, which was towards the end of school. Like the point at which I felt that like doing well required work. Because what happened was I wasn't particularly used to working on things, and I hated it. I was like, whoa, I'm having to work way more. This sucks. And that made me go, God, I'm a lazy person because I hate work. And I don't think it necessarily is that. It was more that, you know, I'm enjoying myself less. And naturally, of course, I'm not going to like enjoy myself less. That's how humans are. You know,
Does a story come to mind, like a particular moment or time when you realize that you're going to have to start working?
Not exactly. Just when I started sixth form, which I don't UK schooling. It's like the last sort of.
How old
It's the last
were
bit
you?
before uni. I would ooh, how old would I be? 16? I'd be like 16 or 17 at that point. Probably
Can you
16.
is there anything you can share with me in terms of like concrete stuff about moments or like just what it was like being 16 and sort of realizing you can't afford to be lazy anymore?
Uh, this sixth form is one of these ones where like I didn't realize how much I hated it until I left. And I think I genuinely have suppressed a lot of it because I don't remember it very well, which is strange for how recent it is, but it's all one big blur of just not enjoying myself and hoping to get through it. And don't get me wrong, there's moments where I did enjoy myself, but like overall, just the whole experience I found stressful. But
Can you just tell me about that experience? What comes to mind?
I remember just being unhappy with it. Like just being like, I hate this. I can't wait to leave. And don't get me wrong, I had good friends and the social elements were great when they were things I could focus on, but half of the time I couldn't. So I just felt like, wow, I don't enjoy this. This isn't great, you know? It was just a period that, and I considered leaving a lot. I never did. I'm not even 100% convinced that I wouldn't have done. COVID kicked us out early, and I'm not convinced that I would have made it to the very, very end. I was really getting to the end of my tether by the end of it. But they kicked us out early, and they kind of we didn't take exams. I don't know if you heard much about like what happened in the UK with that, but they just kind of went, "Hey, you don't have to. It's not safe to get all these kids in exam rooms. We're just going to work out your grades from the work you've done over the past 2 years, and you're done. Have fun. Like you've done what you can. We're just going to use everything we've got up until now." So they kicked us out early. And I was like, "Oh wow, okay. Guess I'm done."
How did you feel about that?
A little bit worried because obviously I hadn't treated. So there's two parts of me. There's like a little part of you that's worried because there was no warning to that. There was no like, hey, I mean, they say this throughout school, but you never really believe it because it's like, hey, in the scenario that on the way to an exam, you get ran over by a car and break your legs, we'll use your previous word. But like what's the chances, right? And then all of a sudden that thing actually happens. It's like, hey, we're actually using your stuff. And you're like, whoa, I didn't treat this like it was going to be the thing that decides what grades I get in the end. Like, that's a little bit stressful. But I also knew that these things have been graded throughout school and I was doing well. So I was like, ultimately, I should be fine. There's no reason I shouldn't get A's. I've been getting A's pretty much throughout this. I should be fine. At which point I went, okay, guess I got to wait till August. It's March. And that was it. I was done. Like, and I didn't go get a job. I'm like, well, I was like, well, I had, I worked through my summers, so I was like, I got money. I don't need a job. I'm just gonna enjoy it because, I mean, when's the world gonna be like this again? Yes.
So you were in school and you were hating it, right? Is that right? You were
Yeah.
in school and you were hating it?
Right towards that end part, yeah, definitely.
And
which was abnormal for me.
There was a chance that if COVID didn't happen, you wouldn't have finished school?
So that's the thing. Would I have probably not. I really felt like I was getting to that point. And a friend of mine dropped, and then I was like, whoa, okay, that kind of, because I constantly thought about it. Constantly. And but I cannot say I would have ever done it. Because I don't think
how would you have felt about yourself if you did do it?
I don't know. Depends what I went on to do afterwards. I think I think I would have had to wait till the consequence. If there was I say extremely negative consequence. If I perceived it to be an extremely negative consequence, then I would have beat myself up about it. And if I got on fine, I wouldn't. I suppose I wouldn't have cared. It's like I dropped out of uni to do this, right? But that made sense. I was doing well in this, and like so the consequences are good. So all of a sudden, it's like great. Like I made the right decision, and I never think back on that. Like that is not something I think back on. And if a scenario like that would have happened, where I found something that was amazing, then great. But if it didn't, then yeah, I would have been pretty annoyed.
So this is where I'm going to say something that may be a bit judgmental, and it's more of a hypothesis than a conclusion.
Cool.
But I get the sense like something just clicked for me. So like I think that what's really confused me this entire time, Jack, is like where you get the idea that you're lazy. Essentially, why don't you have faith in yourself? Because the tricky thing is, why do you need like external things to reassure you? You need external things fundamentally. If anyone out there is like listening, we need external things when we don't believe in ourselves, right? If I doubt my intelligence and I get an A, I feel reassurance from the external world. So reassurance from the external world really only like exists when I have insecurity. Does that make sense? So the thing that's been really confusing about this whole conversation is I've been trying to understand, like I've thought from kind of early on that there's something, why are you afraid of coasting? Why are you afraid of being lazy? It sounds like you can really enjoy things and logically you understand that like you're still doing well and stuff like that. But at the root of this, I'm getting this sense, like even when we talked about the conflict, I'm being dumb. That's like that sort of thought that you have, like, where does that come from? Where did your mind learn that you're dumb? Because it sounds like you did well in school. Sounds like you're pretty successful. Sounds like you're pretty driven. I was really confused about there's this like nugget of something which feels incompetent to me within you that you believe about yourself. And so you look for these big external things, like if I'm the #1 Twitch streamer or I retire or things like that, then you'll have such a blanket reassurance that thing won't have a leg to stand on. And I've seen that thing manifest in your words like over and over and over again. It manifests. I want you to go back and watch this and just listen to the number of times you say, but. You'll say something that's like really logical and then you'll be like, but. And even the most extreme manifestation, which like I've tried really hard to not be encouraging or reassuring to you. Because I had a feeling that the second I say, Jack, I think you're doing a great job, that thing would have popped up. And even despite the fact that like I didn't say it to you a single time, I've been sending you like positive, reassuring vibes, it still popped up and it said,
still puts up on it,
hey, you're tricking him. He doesn't really know who you are. And then it's like, wait, but what does that part of you believe about you, right? Why does it think if you're tricking me into believing that you're a decent, good, hardworking human being, the only reason your mind would think that that's a trick is if it believed the opposite. Does that make sense? So that word trick is very important because it gives us a clue to what you believe about yourself. And this also it's not like all of you believes this. It's just like a doubt that's lingering. It's a part of your mind.
It's there. Yeah, totally. Yeah.
And I think that for me, what just clicked is like, I believe that despite all your success, despite how good you are at grinding, despite all of your parental support, despite all of the faith that you do have in yourself, you know that you're capable. You could have dropped out of school.
Yeah.
And there's this part of like, and I wonder if this is sort of it, and this is something I leave you with a hypothesis as opposed to a conclusion, because I don't really know. We'd have to have another 2-hour conversation. But what I'm really hearing is like, despite everything that you have be proud of, just think about how terrifying that is. For you to like be so smart and be so hardworking and be able to grind and still essentially wash out, like that would be such a blow to like what you're capable of in this life. Does that make sense? It's like if you can wash out of school despite all the stuff that you're good at, like, if the tedium gets too much for you to handle, and I don't think it's about intelligence, I think it's about laziness. Because what would you tell yourself if you dropped out of school? Like, you're fucking lazy. You could have done it. You just couldn't cut it. And I may be like making things a little bit extreme, and I'm kind of doing that on purpose because I don't really know if this is connected for you. It may not connect. I just may be wrong here.
Yeah,
But this whole time, like, of all of the things that really surprised me, Jack, out of everything you've said, it's the idea that you could have dropped out of school. Right? You describe yourself as a good student. You're a hard worker. You try really hard to like, you're like easy to set targets. Just like if this person says do this, I'm going to be like the best employee I can. It's simple. There's one thing that has happened, which is run contrary to everything that you've said. And that's you could have failed out, dropped out, or been unable to do school. And so something tells me, I wonder if like sort of that core of doubt, this sort of idea that I am lazy, this fear that you could wind up lazy, because now what's happening is you got saved. You get that? It was like you were losing this game and then like your opponent in the grand finals DC'd.
Right.
Because COVID happened. And so like you dodged a bullet, you never got tested. You didn't know. Like sure, like logically you're like, oh yeah, like I probably would have been fine. But there's some part of you that I wonder if you got saved. Like, do you feel that way?
I don't know. I struggle to say, because honestly, there's plenty of times where I feel like quitting a lot of things and I never do it. So, but that was like, I used to say that basically every week. I'm like, I'm not sure if I can do this. I really hated it. I'm not quite sure what about it I really, really hated. I think there's a few elements, and I think there's just a part of me that I don't think I was in my mentally soundest place at that point, and that was a lot of added stress anyway. So I feel like it was more of a mental sort of like, I don't know if I can deal with the stress of this sort of thing.
And so what is someone who can't deal with the mental stress of it? What would you call that person?
You see, my brain's saying weak, but that feels harsh. I feel like that's not necessarily like, I feel like
There it
weak,
is
like,
again.
that's harsh. But
you see the two sides?
yeah,
Your brain comes up with an answer, and I think that's how you would have felt, right? And I don't think you could convince me otherwise, that like if you would have felt weak. Like, sure, there's this
constantly told myself that I wasn't. I would have been like, no, it's reasonable that you did. I would have done the logic thing. But then deep down, no, I think I would.
Exactly, right? That's the thing. Because I think logically you're doing a good job. But I think deep down, and that's where, like, so I think going forward, here's my advice for you, for lack of a better term. The first is to like notice the buts. So like just notice that sometimes you're conflicted. Second thing is notice that like neither side is stupid. I think like you don't force yourself to change yet. I just want you to like digest this conversation and just like think about what we've talked about and notice the manifestations of these things. Is there a part of you that really feels like, unless you do this, like it is all going to come crumbling apart? Are you basically
definitely.
The grind is the grind to overcome, like, and this is going to sound harsh, the fundamental weakness that exists within you?
Yeah, probably. Like, that sounds about right. I'd say. I mean, like, yeah, I'm really afraid of like this falling apart because I don't know what I'd do without it. I don't know if I could pick myself back up and just get on. I don't know what I'd do. Like, I really don't, and that's terrifying.
Deep down, Jack, what are you?
I don't want to say it, and that's interesting. But you're fishing for weak, and I know that, but I don't want to say it. Because I'm like, no, I'm not weak. I'm offended at the fact that you'd even suggest it, but I know that's not your suggestion.
Yep, but I am bringing it out because I want that reaction, right? So I know you're not going to say it because even if you felt confident in yourself, you could say it. Do you get that?
Right. Oh, okay. That's funny. Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Because like Jack, are you stupid? You could say yes. Like, you would have no problem saying yes, I think.
Yeah, no, I could say that. Yeah, no. I don't feel stupid. So I'd be like, yeah, I'm dumb.
Yeah, exactly, right? So that's confidence. So it's okay. Like, I don't need you to say it, but I'm just bringing it up, and I'm glad. So you're
it was a good point. It was a good point. Yeah.
Right? And you're like, I'm not going to say it. Good. Right? So that's the problem. Is like, and it's like, here's the wildest thing, which I don't know if you're going to be able to accept yet. I think it's okay for you to be weak. I think it's okay for you to be not enough. I think whatsoever you are, I know it sounds kind of weird, like, is enough. And I'm not just saying that because like everyone is enough. I don't think that. I think some people genuinely do need to be doing more in life. I think in your case, I do think you're doing a fantastic job. And I think it's okay for you to have parts of weakness within you, because I know this sounds kind of weird. I have faith in all of the parts of you that have overcome that part of weakness. I don't think you need to be perfect. You can be flawed. You don't have to be 100%, and we can still bet on you, right? I would bet on you any day of the week. I don't need you to get an A. I don't need to have an external assurance that like you're going to do great. I can put faith in the part of you that works hard. I can put faith in the part of you that like, tries to make people happy. I can put faith in those parts, and I don't need assurances, but I suspect that's going to be quite foreign to you.
Yeah, no, yeah, I don't think I'd be able to. I'm very difficult to convince without evidence. In its simplest terms, in its very simplest terms.
But hold on a second. I'm not trying to give you evidence. What word am I using?
No, you're not. No.
What do I have for you?
Faith. Yeah.
So what is faith?
I suppose, for want of a better term, blind belief.
Absolutely. Right? It's about the absence of evidence. So that's my point. And that's what's going to be hard for you. This is just one conversation. So you've got time. You don't have to figure it out tomorrow.
Yeah, of course.
But I think essentially what you need is like you're trying so hard to fix everything, to reassure yourself. Because once you have that thing in the bank account, you don't need faith anymore because you've got certainty. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
What you need to learn is how to have faith in yourself, that it's okay that you don't need to be perfect. You don't have to be #1 on Twitch. You don't need $100 million in the bank account. That you will actually be okay, like just because of who you are. But I recognize that's foreign. So
no, but it's a very it was very comforting to hear that. You know, that was a very comforting sort of like monologue, which I was like, yeah, you know, if I could really subscribe to that, then, and that's not to say I ignored it either. That it did sink, but not. It obviously it doesn't change overnight, does it? But yes.
No. So I like that. That's actually progress. You know why that's wholesale progress? Because you said, if I could subscribe to that instead of I should subscribe to that, but. It's very subtle, but that's exactly where you need to be. If I could. You need to play around with these things, Jack. Explore them, like navigate them. You stop telling yourself what you should do and start exploring. I know it sounds kind of small, but for me, that's a big win.
That does sound quite big. Yeah.
Right? It's different from the way that you've been talking.
Thing.
Yeah, like, you just need to figure things out. It's because so far, this entire conversation, it's been, I know the right answer, but. Or this is how I feel, but. It's always been torn between black and white, right? This is the first time that I've heard you say something that like, oh, like, I wonder if I can do this. It's curiosity. It's exploration as opposed to choice.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And very practically, I think just give yourself a chance to, if you're feeling paralyzed, start to like look in yourself and try to ask yourself like, okay, like, is this me like feeling weak? Is this me afraid of being weak? Is this me afraid of like, do I have that fear? Just notice the fear within yourself and ask yourself, what is this fear driving me to do? And can I set aside the fear for a while? Can I be reassuring? Right? Can I be like almost an older brother to like 17-year-old me who was afraid that I may actually like quit school and be like, hey man, like even if you have to quit, that's okay. I have faith that you'll land on your feet.
Yeah.
Questions? Thoughts?
No, I think it's a good. I think it's a very. I think one, you understood it well, which is always very nice because I think to me, I think seeing it mapped out like that's great because it's also just a very confusing conflicts, inherently confusing, and so to see it mapped out in a way that's like makes sense is great. And then I think I think it's a good idea. Just kind of having a bit more blind faith in things generally. I think we've really focused this inwards, but me as a person, I could probably benefit from just believing things more. I'm horribly skeptical. Don't
believe things more. Explore.
Yeah. Okay. Sorry. Yes.
Right. So. Yes. Don't change who you are, Jack. You're great, bro.
Okay. Okay.
But I think faith sometimes has to be like found, right? Like. Because you got to be careful because there may be a part of your mind that hijacks that and says, oh, like, Jack, you should believe more. You should have more faith.
Right. Yeah, which is okay. That is what happens.
You see what I mean? Like it'll be sneaky. Yeah. And then you'll start beating yourself up for not having enough belief or faith. Right. Like logically, like people who have more faith tend to do better in life. So I should have more faith. So it's okay.
Yeah. That's a good way. Yeah,
right.
Okay.
So anyway, I kind of torpedoed what you were saying. I'm sorry.
But... No, but I'm glad you did because I would have left this having like seen it like that. So you did a good job. You did a very good job.
Do you see like, and the big takeaway I want you to have, Jack, is notice that there's this thing in your mind which is going to be like, it's like malware almost. That'll it'll pop up no matter like what, like even with this discussion of faith and belief, it'll insert itself into that.
Yes.
So as best as you can, what you really need to do more than anything else is just notice its activity. Don't try to stop it. Don't try to control it. Yeah. Just see like, okay, the next time I'm torn and the next time I'm busy, ask yourself, where is this coming from? When you're mentally busy, oh God, I can't afford to move. It's going to come from this place. Look at, okay, why do I feel like I'm too busy? Why do I feel like I have no time? Where is this coming from? And then there's going to be a bunch of logic. That's going to be like layers 1, 2, and 3. And then subsurface, there's going to be something else. There's going to be either a fear that like, oh my God, what if this falls apart? some kind of uncertainty, some kind of lack of faith. And like, even then, you don't have to change it. Just be like, oh, wow, there's a part of me that's really afraid. Acknowledge it. Bring it to the surface instead of fighting with the logic.
Mm-hmm.
And I think the more you're able to do that, the better you'll be.
All right. Thank you.
Thoughts, questions? I feel like we're at a good stopping point. How do you feel?
No, yeah, that feels quite conclusive.
Okay.
That feels like good advice. Yeah, that's great. Thank you. I appreciate it.
Do you like meditating? Do you want to learn how to meditate?
That'd be great. Yeah, I find it very interesting.
Okay. Have you ever meditated before?
It's little bits, nothing crazy. Just little dabbling. I think, I think it's something I was like, yeah, I could benefit from that. So I played around with it a little bit. Yeah.
Okay. So I'm gonna let me just think for a second.
Of course.
Okay, I'm gonna give you a choice.
Mm-hmm.
Do you want to? So there's a part. I'm gonna hypothesize for a moment. There's a part of your psyche that is afraid that you're weak. Okay.
Sure.
I'm just gonna assume that. Okay, may not be true.
Yeah. No, yeah.
If I were to give you a choice, if you wanted to understand that part or digest that part and make it go away, like basically fix it or understand it, which one would you pick?
Ooh, that's difficult because, like, in my head, if I understood it, maybe I could defeat it. But then that's what I thought. I'm like, oh, understanding it would be great, but then it's so I could fix it. So ultimately, would I prefer to fix it or understand it? That's
Neither one is better. From my perspective,
no,
it's just
no,
what instinctively appeals to you.
No, I think I'd like to understand it.
Okay, so we're going to do a technique that we do from time to time. It's going to be called, I call it charging the laser beam. Okay, it's going to be kind of weird. So what I'm going to ask you to do is sit up straight, and then I'm going to kind of demonstrate. We're going to take our. I don't know.
You made me realize how unstraight I was sat. My God.
Yeah. So
if
you're, how tall are you?
Like 5'9".
Okay. Is your back straight when you sit in that chair?
Yeah.
Like straight?
Hold on. Maybe it's not actually. Now you've acknowledged it. Hold on. Okay. I'm now not leaning against the chair. I'm just sat straight.
Okay.
That is.
And are you comfortable like this?
Yeah. No,
okay.
It's perfectly fine. So
this technique is going to have two parts. Do you want theory or you want to just jump into the practice?
I'd love theory. That'd be great.
Okay. So kind of taking a step back, there are these 7 things called chakras or chakras. Yes. Mm-hmm. And each one is supposed to govern a particular kind of like part of our being. So for example, there's a chakra that governs desire. There's a chakra that governs digestion. So there's very little evidence to support any of this chakra theory. There is some evidence that their heart chakra meditations are specifically useful for treating depression and compassion, but the studies are very, very small. We haven't really looked at the other chakras. Okay. So people think I'm a good psychiatrist, which in a sense I am. But I think a lot of the reason that I'm able to do what I do is because I do a particular set of third eye practices, which govern my ability to understand and like give me intuition. It's sort of like leveling up my intuition skill. Yeah. As a scientist, I wonder if what the yogis kind of figured out is that there are different parts of the brain that somehow get like activated or strengthened by doing particular meditation practices. And maybe it's not like some sort of mystical, like third eye sight, but just like doing these kinds of practices somehow enhance our ability to like pay attention or something like that. Like, I don't know.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, that makes sense to me. Yeah.
So I'm going to teach you a third eye practice that is theoretically designed to give you a sense of intuition or understanding.
Right.
Okay. What I can be pretty sure about is that numerous studies of meditation suggest that what you do is not actually that important, but there's a set of scientific, highly provable benefits which you will get from this practice. This includes improvements in focus, attention, memory, reductions in stress and cortisol. So like those kinds of things you're going to get no matter what I teach you. Okay. So at the least, you'll get that stuff. Hopefully, it'll help you with things like decision making. And on the top end, if we're really lucky and all that weird mystical stuff turns out to be true, then, or even some of it turns to be true, then maybe you'll get some kind of weird like insight into yourself.
Yes, that'd be excellent.
Okay. So this practice is going to have two phases. One, I'm going to take my middle finger and I'm going to hover it above the space between my eyebrows. So I don't want to touch. Okay. And I'm going to do this with my eyes closed. Yeah, I'll walk you through it. So I'm just going to demonstrate. Okay. And then what I'm going to really pay attention to is the sensation in my forehead over where my middle finger is hovering. Okay. So it's going to sound kind of weird, but you'll maybe feel something. So you just want to focus on your forehead where the finger is pointing. That's going to be phase one of the practice. We're going to do that with our eyes closed. Okay. If you happen to get some kind of sensation there, then we've got two additional steps to the practice. One is to then relax the hand and just focus on the sensation on your forehead. The second is when you breathe in, imagine you're going to feel the breath in your nostrils, but imagine that breath is going up and into that point. And as you breathe out, imagine that it's coming out of that point too. So we're going to go, kind of thing. Okay. So I'm going to sort of walk you through it. I may ask you one or two questions just to kind of see where you are. There isn't a right way or a wrong way to do the practice. People have different experiences. Okay. So sit up straight, close your eyes, and start by just noticing your breathing. So go ahead and breathe. Let's say so you're on breath number 2. Good. Give me one more. Beautiful. Nice slow exhalation. And now go ahead and you can continue breathing. Take the your right hand middle finger. Go ahead and place it don't touch your forehead, but try to bring it really, really close. And what I want you to do is notice the sensation of your finger. Do you feel anything on your forehead?
Just like pressure, I guess it's almost, if that makes any sense.
Yep.
As it almost as if it's being touched, but not quite. It's conscious of the fact that there's something there.
Yep. So I want you to just focus on that. You can try to bring your finger a little bit closer.
Oh yeah, I moved it quite a lot actually.
Yep, there you go. So now focus on that. You feel that pressure? Okay. Now you can go ahead and relax for a little bit. You can let your hand come down and just focus on the sensation. Do you still feel the pressure? Okay, so we're going to focus on that for about 15 seconds. And now I want you to bring your finger back. We're going to do this a second and a third time, where you kind of bring it over and sort of feel that pressure. Let the finger kind of strengthen the pressure, if you will. And now let your hand come down. Focus on the sensation in your forehead. We're going to go for another 15 seconds or so. And now for the third round, we're going to hold it there for about a minute now. So really try to point your finger towards your forehead. for lack of a better term, feel the energy in that spot. Now bring your hand down. So now I want you to breathe into it. So feel that point on your forehead, and as you breathe in, you'll feel the inhalation, the cool air enter your nostrils, go up into your forehead. And then as you exhale, feel the warmth come out. And go ahead and do about 5 breaths. And now what I'm going to do is just give you a choice. So if you felt the sensation and kind of enjoyed that, you can drive your attention into the spot on your forehead. It's almost like, imagine that your mind is behind your forehead and that you can focus and concentrate your mind into that spot. And if you preferred the breath, you can breathe into it. Whichever one just feels better for you. We'll practice for a period of about 3 minutes. If you get bored of one, you can do the other. And now go ahead and take a deep breath in and out. Let yourself start to return to the world. You're sitting in your chair, in your new place. You're Jack. You're 19 years old. Notice the facets of your reality start to come back. Who you are, where you are. You may be hungry, you may be thirsty, you may have errands to run. And notice that for a time you stepped outside of your life and just existed. You were neither success nor failure. You were neither an A student or an F student. You may have even lost track of your name, your gender, your job, that these are all parts of life. But there's almost a timeout space that you stepped into. And now put your palms together in front of you, kind of like in Namaste position, if you know what that is. So touch your palms together. And then rub them together. Rub, 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 rub. So you feel heat, tension, energy. And then cup them over your eyes. Cup your palms over your eyes. Take a deep breath in and slowly exhale and open your eyes while covered by your hands. And then when you're ready, put your hands down.
Hi.
Hi. How do you feel?
That was good. That was, yeah. No, it's very like, yeah.
I don't know what that means, but I think that's doing
No,
it
yeah,
right.
no, it was good. It was good. Yeah, yeah.
You don't
I
even.
think the whole point of it feels like I shouldn't really come out with many thoughts about it. I feel like it was just
Yeah,
like,
yeah,
yeah, that was
that's yeah.
great.
No, that's what I think you did really well. Like you're like it was the whole thing
you.
was like that's the whole yeah, that means you're doing it right. So I think that's the tricky thing about meditation is the more you describe it, the more it actually confuses people. Because if you say, "Oh, it was like so peaceful," like, "Oh my god, I saw." So someone in our chat said that this felt like charging a laser beam. I think that made a lot of sense to me, but I don't
Sure.
know.
Okay. Yeah. No, I get that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Now you've said it. Yeah, I feel that.
Yeah, right. But it's like if I told you like, "Hey, this is a charging the laser beam practice," people are like, "What?"
Yeah. No, that's now I've done it. I get what you mean.
Yeah.
But beforehand, yeah. No. Totally,
So
I get that.
overall, if it worked for you, it worked for you. And I would say that you can do this practice for like 15 minutes a day, ideally 3 days a week. I mean, 3 days a week. If you bump it up to about 5 days a week, you'll get a little bit more benefit. But I think you can do like, whatever variation felt right. You can start off with some deep breathing. You can use the finger to charge the laser beam. But if you feel that sensation, that's really what you're focusing on. And so the finger can be used to trigger the sensation or make you aware of the sensation. But once you've felt enough or your Agna chakra starts to activate and energy starts to flow through it, you may no longer need the finger.
Right.
And then your third eye chakra. And then in terms of you can decide like if you want to just focus on it and you can hold your attention on it long enough, that's totally fine. If your mind starts to wander, you can go to the breath and kind of imagine like a V going up into your forehead and exhaling. You can do a combination of both. You can do like, basic breathing for 5 minutes, centering yourself, finger, 5 minutes of breath, and then 5 minutes of just concentrating on that spot and driving your energy into it, and then kind of wrap up. Cool. Oh, by the way, I didn't ask you to tell us like who you are and where they can find you. I assumed everyone already knew because you're so big, but why don't you go ahead and tell us anyway?
I am Jack Manifold TV on everything pretty much. I don't think there's anything I'm not. So if you want to look me up pretty much anywhere, I'm on most things. So
and what can people expect if they come and check you out?
Oh God, lots of things. I tend to just do what I enjoy. YouTube, I go out and do things. Twitch, I sit here and do things. That's basically it, to be honest.
Okay, so check out Jack for like someone who sits and does things or goes.
I do things. I try and be funny while I do things. The things vary, but the kind of key is that I'm here and I'm trying to be funny at least.
Okay, awesome, man. Thank you so much for coming and
thank you. I appreciate it. Thank you.
And take care, man.
You too. Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you so much. All right, bye-bye.
Oh, there we go. All right. Yeah. All right, chat. So rating suggestions. And while we're sorting that out, mirror dimension Dr. K. What does that mean? What? Oh, okay. You guys want to raid City on? That's fine. Okay, we're gonna raid Sid. Do y'all want any like follow-up questions? Oh, evil twin? Yeah. You guys want to see Dr. K's evil twin? No, it's too late. Yeah, so someone's asking, how do you fire the laser beam? You don't fire the laser beam. The goal of charging the laser beam is not to fire it, or it gets fired internally, is the other way to put it. So remember that the goal of meditative practice is the cultivation of Shakti, which means like the cultivation of like internal energy. And if you let that energy out, then it dissipates within you. And so the goal is to just cultivate the energy and like level up. It's sort of like, it's like investing into like something that accumulates interest. So when you meditate, you accumulate Shakti, and if you send it externally, you like lose it, but you can bank it and it'll start like accruing interest. And you just like, it's like contributing to your retirement account. You put more and more money in, and then it starts growing, and then it can like get bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger. And the moment you start making withdrawals, like it drastically affects your growth. How do you let it out if it becomes too much? You don't let it out if it becomes too much. You probably stop accumulating, is what I would recommend. And why the middle finger? It has something to do with your chakra circuitry. So remember that the chakras are part of like the meridian system or the nadi system, which is like the system of like, like channels of energy in your body. And so even within your hand, you have a bunch of different energy channels. So there's something about linking the channel from your middle finger to your forehead. If you lose focus midway and start having an inner monologue while doing the meditation, what does that say about you? It says nothing about you. It says that you're a normal human being who's trying to meditate. That's a normal part of meditation. And if you practice and let go of the inner dialogue, then you'll return to the practice. What does it mean if I don't feel the pressure under my finger? That means that the practice may not be for you. So remember that, this is different, but we tend to be in the minority here. So if you go to learn meditation at like a particular place, right, they will say this is the way to meditate. In most of my years studying meditation, I would say there's like 1 out of 100 places that will actually say, hey, by the way, we're not the tradition for you. You should go and learn to meditate somewhere else. So like most places will be like, hey, this is how you meditate. And if you're not doing enough a good job, like you need to try harder. It's not the technique that's the problem. It's you that's the problem. So it's been my experience learning lots of different traditions that different meditations work for different people. So depending on where you are in your life karmically, even like neuroscience, like maybe what your 5-factor personality like status is, there may be like different techniques that work for different people. So I use different techniques for different spiritual goals. I use different techniques for different therapeutic goals. So I have a different regimen for addiction compared to depression, compared to anxiety, trauma. Like they all have different meditation techniques that I teach people. And so if it's not working for you, that just means that's not the meditation for you, and just try something else. Sound good? For people who are asking for regimens, so that's why we have Dr. K's Guide to Depression and Anxiety. So I teach specific meditation techniques for those things. For people who are interested in meditation techniques for other goals, those are in the meditation guide. Like there's meditation techniques if you're a student, for example, and that's all in there. Addiction is something we'll work on. Noted. Can you get addicted to meditation? I don't think so. We'll do like 1 or 2 more questions. What kind of people do you think transcendental meditation is good for? So I think TM is kind of interesting because they have a whole system. So originally TM was like personalized. So there was like the Maharishi Mahesh Yogi would give individual people mantras that like he would kind of understand. And then as they grew, they sort of essentially made a table that had they give you a mantra based on like certain demographic information. I don't really know. I haven't been able to test how accurate their mantra assignment is. But the good news is that there's a lot of scientific evidence that shows that TM is generally effective. So I just don't know enough about how the logic behind which they assign mantras. So I can't really say. Thoughts on Vipassana? I think Vipassana is great, but also very, very extreme. So if you guys want to do it, go for it, but it's hard. Can monks suffer from depression? Absolutely. Many of them do, and many of them have been my patients. I have heard of the Ishakriya, so that's another, we'll get into that later, but maybe we can talk a little bit about different gurus and yogis and stuff. What does the hand rubbing at the end do? So the first thing is it like centers you back in the present with a physical sensation, right? So you're kind of like, oh yeah, like here's my body. The other thing is that when you open your eyes, you're not met with the harsh light, because like it's kind of weird, but light is harsh after you meditate. So we want to kind of, it's like a way to like let you enter back into the realm of, into reality. So I think it's important to like, so when you psychologically, when you anchor meditation with like a preparatory practice and an ending practice, it kind of creates a habit in your mind that lets you meditate between those two spaces. If you abruptly end meditation, then it is easy to abruptly get distracted in meditation and stop thinking properly, start thinking and stop meditating. Does that make sense? So instead, what we want to do is anchor the practice with an ending thing that signals the end. And so then what happens, what's cool is like if your mind learns that, okay, when we ring the bell, that's the end of meditation. If you habituate yourself to that, then what you can do is stretch out the bell, right? So then you can have the bell at 5 minutes, 6 minutes, 7 minutes, 8 minutes, 9 minutes. And if your mind gets trained to know that, okay, the bell signals the end of meditation, you can gradually increase your meditation from 5 to 10 minutes with very little effort. Does that make sense to people? It's actually like, it's sort of like a secret technique that improves the quality of your meditation. You just got Pavloved. That's a beautiful way to put it. So that's how you Pavlov your way into meditation, right? You set anchors at the beginning and end, and that's how you like meditate for like an hour. Very well put. All right, so we'll see y'all on Wednesday. We're back to regular streams. And let's go to Sidion. So there's someone who's asking how much does the placebo effect get considered in meditation? Very, very highly. Once again, there's a whole lecture on the science behind meditation in Dr. K's guide. There are also references there, so if y'all are curious, go there. But the short answer is it's very easy to do a placebo-controlled trial on meditation because you can just tell people to close their eyes and concentrate on something. And there are lots of fMRI studies and all kinds of other studies that show that meditation is way more than placebo. It's actually very easy to study from a placebo standpoint. Because you just tell people to close their eyes and you don't actually teach them a technique. And then the other people, you tell them to close their eyes and you teach them a technique and you see the difference. Right? Does that make sense? All right, so we'll see y'all on Wednesday. Take care.